celebrating the power of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Joan Cronan, Part 1.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. These are great stories about great people who prove with their lives that anything is possible. And why stories? Muriel Rukeyser, that's her name, Muriel Rukeyser, I'll get it out. She said that the universe wasn't made of atoms, it was made of stories, right? And so when we kind of look back at history, we end up telling stories. And I've always believed that things were possible, but I've always believed if you could tell the story of a person of possibility, you could verify possibility and then pass it on to somebody else.
And that's what life's about.
Yeah. This is Joan Cronan. Thank you for being here today.
It's great to be here.
My first guest on Anything is Possible, and we are 350 shows deep or something, was Pat Summitt.
You started well. Great start.
Pick a winner, right?
That's right. Just surround yourself with great people.
Right, you're going to win. And to see you sitting in that chair, I just want to thank you for being here today.
It's great to be here.
And
I think we both can say a lot of thanks to Pat Summitt and what she's done for the world.
I think the thing that blew me away about Pat Summitt was her faith. And so I'm using that word with italics because she did have a personal faith, but her faith in what was possible.
Absolutely. She never doubted, and she believed in hard work, and she believed in putting the right people with her, and what a success story.
Let's start there.
Okay.
So you were the athletic director as she's racking up championships, and you guys are collaborating to build a phenomenal program.
You know, Halloran, our theme was always building champions while you win championships. Building the players and acknowledging what they can do with their lives was really more important than the wins and losses.
How did you come to that as a philosophy? Because you're technically her boss. You had to be a really gracious person not to want to show the world, I'm the boss's boss.
You know, I always felt like life's a partnership, and Pat and I had a great partnership in trying to build the best program. As an athletic director, my job description personally was to make the coach's job the best it could be, to make the athlete's experience the best it could be, and represent the university in a class way. And it was so much fun getting to do that.
Yeah, but what kind of blew me away about the relationship you shared is when you're a high performance person, high performance people, they have a tough time with people who aren't high performance people. They've got really high standards. And she had so much respect, has so much respect for you. Did she ever tell you what she saw in your leadership style that she responded to?
You know, I think we talked a lot, and our goals were so similar that we didn't have that much trouble. I laugh and tell her we worked together for 30 years, and we only had one major disagreement, and I was right, so it was okay. But, you know, our goals were the same, and I always looked, I said jokingly for years, as long as Pat Summitt's coach, I'm a great AD. And as long as I had coaches like Ralph and Karen Weekly and Matt Credage and all of those coaches, they make AD's lives good. And our goals we're a team, and that's what we're teaching. We're teaching teamwork. And if our staff can't be a team, then we certainly can't coach young ladies that we want to be teams. So I think Pat and I looked at it as each other as ways to work together to get a common goal.
So she could not be a really effective coach without being a great follower. You can't.
Absolutely, and I think we're all, you know, we all want to be leaders, but we got to realize we're going to be followers. And what I like so much about working with Pat is she was always learning. She was always looking for a better way. I get asked all the time, what made Pat Summitt a great coach? She was a great teacher. And teachers go about learning and giving knowledge, and that's what Pat did every day. That gym floor was her classroom.
Wow. There's a quote from Nikos Kazantzakis I want to share with you in just a moment. This is Joan Cronan, and you're watching Anything is Possible.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
Put a baseball hat on, a bat in my hand, and I tried out for Little League Baseball. I'd beaten all the little boys in the backyard, but I went out to play and try out for the team, and they said girls don't play.
This is Anything is Possible, and this is Joan Cronan. She's proof that anything is possible. So you were talking about Pat Summitt was a great teacher. This is that quote from Nikos Kazantzakis. He said, "Teachers are those who use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross. Then, having facilitated the crossing, they joyfully collapse, encouraging them to build bridges of their own."
Oh, that's a great quote.
And that,
a great quote. And that's what it is. It's about looking forward and helping people. You know, every time I speak to a group of young people, be it at the Fellows Program downtown or at the Leader Scholarship Program we have at Leadership Knoxville at UT, I walk out of that room thinking, life's going to be good. We have such great young people, and that's what we want. That's what we want.
where were you born?
Ooh, I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, but I lived there 2 weeks. I grew up in Opelousas, Louisiana, right in the middle of Cajun country. Loved it. I am a Cajun with orange blood. I'm actually an LSU graduate, but you know, I've been involved with the university for 35 years now. So it's home, and I love Knoxville, and I love Tennessee, and I love the University of Tennessee.
Brothers and sisters?
I have a younger sister and a younger brother. Neither one of them care anything about athletics.
Tell me about your mom and dad.
Mom and dad were, dad was in the finance business, and mother stayed at home but helped him along the way. But if I had to say, you know, what helped me the most in growing up, they thought I could do anything I wanted to do. And at the time, it's kind of funny now, but I can remember, I thought I was a great basketball player, and I can remember my dad, and he embarrassed me when he would say, "Shoot, baby," from the stands. But I knew he wanted me to be the best I could be at that time. And they showed me that. They gave me the opportunities, and so I'm just really, really thankful.
Tell me about Joan Cronan, the athlete.
Oh gosh, Joan Cronan's competitive. Joan Cronan played high school volleyball, basketball, and tennis, but there were no college opportunities at that time. So I knew from the time I was 12, Halloran, that I was, you know, the Barbara Mandrell's song, she was country before it was cool to be country. Well, I was a tomboy before it was cool for women to be in sports. And I knew that I wanted to be in a business that helped women learn to compete. So not many people know what they want to do at 12, but I did. And I am so thankful for the journey.
Was there something that happened?
Yeah, somebody wouldn't let me play.
Was it a specific sport, a specific day?
Absolutely.
Tell
12
me that
years old,
story.
put a baseball hat on, a bat in my hand, and I tried out for Little League Baseball.
In Louisiana?
In Louisiana. My house connected to the city park. I'd beaten all the little boys in the backyard, but I went out to play and try out for the team, and they said girls don't play.
You remember who said it to you?
I remember the coach. I remember his smile. I remember he was a nice gentleman, but he wouldn't let me play. He offered to let me be a manager. He offered to let me be an assistant coach. He offered to let me be a cheerleader, but he wouldn't let me play. And I said, this is just not right. So what a journey that I have had.
So when you walked away from that moment, who did you talk to first?
Well, I went home and I said in my typical way, this is just not fair. And my dad said, well, do something about it. And so
he didn't say, no, baby
that's
girl.
That's the way it should be. You know, he said, do something about it. And so I knew that I wanted to be in that business. And you know, I coached some, but I really have always liked the big picture. So I knew I wanted to be an athletic director. So not many people get to live their dream, and I've gotten to live their dream. And you know, right now, my title is Women's Athletic Director Emeritus, and that means you're old. That means you're not in the decision making, but it means you smile a lot now. And what I want to do in this part of life is to give back. I still have the same passion about helping people And so it's been a fun transition. I've written a book, enjoying that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about
yeah.
that. By the way, this is the book, Sport is Life with the volume turned up. And a great book. I recommend it highly. But you've written a book. But now kind of knowing a little bit more about your backstory and the 12-year-old Joan Cronan, building successful programs and making champions of all people, but women specifically, that was a cause.
Yeah, it was.
You were doing something about it.
You know, we were talking about sound bites earlier, and ESPN came in at the height of our success, and they wanted to do an interview. And of course, I wanted to give them my 30-minute speech, and all they wanted was a sound bite. And I simply said, we've been fortunate to develop a passion about what we're doing and a real pride. And I think that's true in the business world, that's true in your family life. You need to have a passion, and then you need to be proud of what you're doing and let people know you're proud.
So you play multiple sports, but you realized that to make a difference, you needed to be in a leadership position.
Yeah, I really did, and I enjoy that leadership. And I don't enjoy the leadership because you're at the top or you have power. I enjoy the leadership because you can make a difference in people's lives. Your decisions can make a difference.
So how did you find your way from that to athletic director?
Well, I knew that I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. I was competitive, but I wasn't going to ever be that good. And I knew that I thought that we needed role models for women who wanted to compete. And I wanted to develop a program that was that role model. And fortunately, the University of Tennessee allowed me to do that. And we got from Louisiana to Tennessee. I thought I was coming to Yankee land. You know, this is way north. And my late husband got his doctorate at Tennessee in exercise physiology, and I actually coached women's basketball. Went to Charleston for 10 years and started the women's program at the College of Charleston, and actually, again, knocked on the president's door and said, you need to have women's athletics. And I must have been a good salesman, because when I left, I was athletic director, volleyball coach, basketball coach, and tennis coach. So I was either persuasive or really dumb, one or the other. But we did that. We built a great program. We were selected the #1 program in America. And fortunately for me, Tennessee came knocking on our door and said, we'd like you to come back and be athletic director.
What year was that?
That was in 1983.
Wow.
So, so 30 years as in being involved as athletic director and building a dream has been lots of fun.
You come back in '83. What was your expectation?
I knew we could build one of the best programs in America because we had the support of the university. I knew I had a great coach in Pat Summitt. Gloria Ray hired Pat. I didn't. My job was to keep her coaching and to keep her involved and keep her happy. And because she loved to excel, and that was fun to watch. And by us having a showcase program like basketball, we were able to build softball and volleyball and track and field. So we used basketball to help all the other sports.
There's something about you in building. When I watch you work, you seem unflappable. Like I'm a pretty good duck. You paddle fast. Keep smooth, but paddle fast. But that's what I'm realizing, that in building things, there has to be a real passion and real pride. How do you keep this so constant and so steady? Because you have a very easy and warm smile, but you are a fierce competitor.
Dr. Johnson introduced me one time as the most persistent woman he had ever known, and I told him I took that as a compliment. You know, I can be the drippy faucet. I do know what my goals are. You know, people talk about success. I think success is keeping your core values straight and having the right goals to go after. And I was very, very fortunate. As you know, my late husband was such a great role model as far as teaching. He loved to teach. He had such great core values, and he was my best supporter. And that made my life a lot easier. Because life as a mother, as a wife, and as a career person can get difficult. But I tell young women when I talk to them, if you count success, and we all count success differently, but if you count success as a great marriage, having children, and a career, the most important decision you make is who you marry, because it has to be a partnership. It has to be somebody that's going to support you and you're going to support them. If it's not, then you can never have it all the time. I said there's seasons, but I think you can have it all most of the time.
I love that. This is Joan Cronan, and you're watching Anything is Possible. We'll be right back.
Coming up,
I can remember John Bell coming in and telling us what the disease was, and Tom looked at me that day, at that moment, and said, Joan, you know, God didn't give me this disease, but He really cares how we respond.
The title of Joan Cronan's book is Sport is Life with the volume turned up. Lessons learned that apply to business and life, and we're going to get to that.
Great.
I've never asked you about your husband. We've never had that conversation.
Well, we can have it now.
Where did you meet? How did you meet?
He was ran track at LSU, and I was an undergraduate, and he was the tall, skinny guy with big shoes, shiny shoes in my class, and wrote me a note, and I was so fortunate. I mean, he was a partner that was supportive, because being in athletics is a
Right.
tough life. And he was a professor, loved teaching exercise physiology, had his own gig, walked from Georgia to Maine, did the whole Appalachian Trail, and rode his motorcycle across country, and unfortunately developed pancreatic cancer. And what he taught me through that disease was incredible.
Now, from the time of diagnosis to the time of his transition, how long was that?
Almost 3 years, which is really unusual.
What did you learn in that 3 years?
I learned, well, the first day, I can remember John Bell coming in and telling us what the disease was, and Tom looked at me that day, at that moment, and said, Joan, you know, God didn't give me this disease, but He really cares how we respond.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. And I said, you might do it well, but I don't know about me. I was questioning mine, but he was such a great leader, and he wanted to make a difference in that disease. The wellness community, which is the cancer support, was an area that he got involved in, and he spoke to all 44 groups across the country. It was a good excuse to ride his motorcycle, I think, but he loved doing that. Actually was on Good Morning America. Robin Roberts got on the back of his motorcycle and they rode down New York City, trying to tell people that we needed to do more research with pancreatic cancer.
What was happening to you, though, personally? That's very mission focused, and maybe both of you are the kind of people, that's how you live. You got to have something you're working on.
And we were a great partnership, and I joined in his mission right there. You know, I said, I can help do this. And I knew that life was going to be okay because of his faith and my faith. But living through that 3-year period I think we both learned a lot about each other.
How did you change?
I changed in that I knew that I'm not a good caregiver. I'm not a good, I like to get things done. I have these checklists and all this. And I had to change that because his lifestyle was such that, the list of medicines, the list of diagnoses and all that. And I knew at that time I had to be a caregiver, and I wanted to be a caregiver because I wanted to be, when it was all said and done, I wanted both of us to think we had done a good job. We had done the best we could do.
The first thing he says is, we're going to make it, we're going to make the best of this. Were you there when he transitioned?
Yes.
What was the last thing he said to you?
Last thing he said was, life's going to be okay.
So you feel his presence?
Oh gosh,
still?
yes, yeah. Every once in a while he really nudges me hard when I do something stupid. But I think that he would be really proud. Our legacy, we've got 2 great daughters. I've got 2 of the best son-in-laws, 5 of the cutest grandchildren you've ever seen.
You really do have.
Yeah,
it looks like a magazine cover.
So I feel very, very blessed. And so what I want to do is live life and give back as much as I can.
Would he ever want you to remarry?
I think he would be fine with that. I hadn't found anybody that compares. So.
That's what I'm thinking is that when you've known that kind of support and that kind of love, that kind of unconditional love, that's an amazing thing. So that adds a whole piece to the narrative of your story, because we often hear the story of when you see a great man, he's got a great woman behind him, but this is...
In some ways it was, but you know, the reason it was able to be this is he had so much self-confidence.
Yeah.
He had so much to give, and it wasn't all dependent on me, but he liked us being a partner, and he liked us doing things together.
Wow, so he played a huge role in you being you.
Yes,
and
absolutely. That's what good marriage is about.
Yeah.
And, you know,
there's this piece I want to share with you, and we'll do that in our next segment, because I want to move on to talking about the book. But it was like the wedding sermon that no one listened to, right? When Will and Kate got married, the Archbishop of Canterbury delivered the sermon, and everybody was too busy looking at Pippa to hear the sermon. Did you hear it?
I saw it, but it didn't register.
So when we come back in part 2 of our interview with Joan Cronan, we're going to do a couple of things. I'm going to share this quote, but then we're going to talk about our great book, which is Sport is Life, with the volume turned up. And we'll get to that. But I'm going to share a quote with you. And if this is not you and your husband, I don't know what is. And I
can't wait.
And I know you love a good quote.
I do.
I've got a good passage for you when we come back. This is Joan Cronan. This is Anything is Possible, because it is. We'll see you next time with part 2.